All right.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to the second session in the subject project planning. Today is a group session, so there's cohorts from students studying the Diploma of Business as well as the Diploma of Management. Both courses are quite similar. Actually, there's a few subjects that both of those courses do together, so we've actually put all of you guys in the one space together today. We're going to be taking you through a couple of different learning activities, the lessons that you see on your screen. So we'll be going through some of those and just giving you a bit of an explanation on what we're looking for as far as responses to some of those questions. Plus, we'll just be spending a little bit of time with the material. For those that are new to our sessions, what we do is we run 6 webinars. They go for about an hour each for each subject. So project planning is a subject. There will be 6 in total. This is the second out of 6. The first 3 webinars are focused on what we call the lessons. So you see on my screen, we have project lessons. So what we do is we actually take you for the 3 of the webinars through each of these 5 different categories. And then what we'll do is we'll do the next 3 sessions on the actual assessment. So we'll do a whole session dedicated to assessment task 1, a whole session dedicated to task 2 and task 3, where what we do is we actually effectively tell you exactly what we're looking for as far as the actual assessment's concerned, what we're assessing you on, and just give you a bit more information or a bit of an explanation on what the actual assignment's all about. So yeah, so we're pretty much ready to get stuck into it. What is our first topic? I believe it's planning and preparation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's project planning and preparation. I guess while Adam's opening up that, does anybody have any questions or any queries so far about their experience with project planning? Have any of you gentlemen started project planning yet, or is it kind of this your first introduction into it?
Okay, let's just jump straight into it, Alyssa.
Yeah, let's just jump straight into it.
What we can do is, as we go through, we can share a little bit about our own experience with working through projects, which we did a fair bit in the first session as well. So for those that, as I said, those that are new to the webinar series, what will actually be happening very shortly is that you'll see that all of the webinars will be uploaded each week to the actual site. So when you click on project planning, you'll see there'll be a new box there very, very soon. That'll be on webinars. There'll be links to future webinars, but there'll also be links to YouTube embedded clips of previous versions of our series. So we do a whole big introduction in the first top webinar on project planning on what a project is, and Alyssa and I have actually give you a bit of an explanation on some projects that we've been in before,
Yep.
just to give you a bit of an idea. But yeah, more than happy to cover some of that. In fact, we'll probably no doubt be covering a bit of that as we go through.
So
all right. Yep, Alyssa, go for it. I'll read the question if you want to go for it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. So just so everybody knows, there's 7 questions in this particular learning activity. So just to reiterate, with the learning activities are designed just so that you guys, well, we know that you've kind of understood the content and the resource material. And once you've obviously done all your learning activities, your assessments will be unlocked, okay? So it's really important to get in there and do these learning activities. Adam and I are going to take you through each of these learning activities for the 2 learning activities today. So we just want to, we don't want you to go into too much depth, don't spend huge amounts of time, but just kind of move through it because we do want you to get your assessments done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So as Alyssa says, the lessons need to be complete, or the learning activities need to be complete before you can jump onto the assessments. Don't spend too long on the learning activities. Answer it if you're not sure. You can actually just put down an answer that you think is the case, or you can even put down I'm not 100% sure. Alyssa and I will be able to provide you feedback on those. You'll get feedback generally within 24 hours, business hours that is, and then you'll be right to resubmit your answers. So don't get too bogged down if you're not sure on something. Push on through. It actually just flags to Alyssa and I that you may need a bit of additional feedback for that question, and it gives us an opportunity to give you, the right tool that you need so that you can jump onto your assessments.
Yep, absolutely. All right.
All right. It's Friday. It's Friday afternoon. We're having a Friday fun one now. So let's get back into it. Let's just jump into the first question. I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first question.
That very first question is basically, why is breaking down the steps of a project such an important aspect of project planning? So last week we kind of talked about the importance of planning when it comes to project management, basically. And we're also talking about goal setting in terms of planning the other unit. So this is actually a nice question. So I guess the question is really asking you, why is it important that you break down steps when you are doing a project? I think it's really hard to kind of motivate you through a very large project if there aren't smaller steps along the way to provide motivation for you. So perhaps you could look at this from a perspective of sustaining motivation and even having the team focus as well, just to celebrate successes. So, you know, sometimes projects can be quite big and it's really hard to sustain that success unless it is broken down into smaller steps.
There was a discussion in the actual learning material there, Alyssa, on something called a systematic approach. Do you want to explain what a systematic approach is and how it relates to project management?
I would love to talk about systematic approaches.
Sounds good.
I guess whenever I think of a systematic approach to something, I think of I think of the word system, obviously, but I think of a very logical approach to a project. So step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this, step 4 is this, step 5 is this. So when I talk about a systematic, or when I hear the word systematic approach to projects, I really think about a very logical, step-by-step, I guess, series of activities that will lead me to my final outcome. So I've got a really, really good system in place. And I think last week, and I can't remember, we were talking about a car or how a car works, I think, Adam?
Yeah, okay, yep, good.
The parts of an engine and how everything needs to kind of be functioning, and everything has a unique function, but without each of those parts, the engine might not run.
Okay. For the way that I, it's a good analogy. I think that one of the main themes of the systematic approach is that with each of the little smaller chunks, or when you break down this big project into smaller pieces, you can actually set a little milestone, or you can actually set an expectation, or it's measurable basically. Each of the little sections can be measured,
yep,
and you can determine whether it's been successful or unsuccessful. So, and in doing that, it's actually something that happens in what we call complex systems. And our complex system is something that has many, many, many different features and operates in crazy different ways. And software engineers and computer programmers will understand this concept very, very clearly. But quite often what happens with software and computer engineering is that when they're writing programming, they write little chunks and they put all these chunks together. And what actually happens by putting all of these little chunks together is it effectively called, I think it's called decoupling, the whole process of doing that. The idea is that you remove components from each other. So a couple of things can happen here. One, it minimizes risk, because if one component goes down, the others can still remain. Webbing, beautiful, okay.
I think Joseph is very, his focus is around that. Yeah. I'm glad.
Okay, fantastic. I had no idea. But yeah, so they break things down to minimize risk, and they also break things down so that they can take little components out of a system and make updates to the components or fix little things along the way. So there's a couple of different, many different ways or different reasons why we would break down a big project into smaller projects, smaller tasks. But from the human aspect of it, it's really just, I think you were talking about human motivation before, listen, I think that's really, for me, that's one of the, the main reasons. All of these other fancy reasons are great, but it actually really assists with the motivation.
Absolutely, yeah. And remember, you might have a project where there's a group of people working on a project, and it's really hard to motivate people for long periods of time if you've only got one objective. But breaking that project into a smaller objective allows for them to feel that success and feel that motivation, and then that will then obviously build motivation to continue focusing on reaching the project outcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, we've all had that experience where we've got something to do. It's a job, we'll call it a project, or we'll call it a job, or just something that we have to do. and it just feels so overwhelming. It's just, oh, it's overwhelming. One of the ways that we can make things less overwhelming is to break things into sort of small little chunks, and then just achieve little chunks as we go.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden this massive beast doesn't feel so overwhelming. So that's another way that I would explain it. Are you familiar with a psychologist by the name of George Miller? He wrote a famous paper called The Magic Number 7, plus or minus 2. And it's actually just a reference to human capacity to process information. So what effectively he was writing was that the human ability to process information is in chunks of 7 plus or minus 2. So between 5 and 9 bits of information. After that, forget about it. So it's just another interesting sort of observation, and you know, it's just yeah, I guess there's quite a lot of different sort of elements to this sort of question. So
absolutely.
Does anybody have any other thoughts or ideas on why breaking down a project might be, you know, a good idea in the planning phase, or you know, I guess in project management in general? Has anybody got any thoughts on this question at all? Sounds good.
Yeah, well, I think let's move on to that second question.
I shall read it out for you, Melissa. And the second question is, how can you work effectively with project stakeholders to achieve the best outcomes?
Right. All right, so last week we really talked about the whole concept of a stakeholder and the importance that they play in a project. And just to kind of recap, I guess a stakeholder is anyone who has a vested interest in the outcomes of the project that you're doing. So it could be pretty much anybody that has like some kind of connection to that project, essentially. So I guess the question is really asking you how you can work effectively with these guys. You know, what are some techniques you might be able to use so that you, you know, you keep them in the loop, essentially? What are some ways that you could work with them? Could you provide them with certain information on a regular basis? Could you look at things like feedback on a regular basis from them? Could you involve them in some aspects of your project? Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like the project stakeholders, as they are a part of the big picture. Like these are the guys that have got a vested interest in the project, so they may see different aspects of your project that you perhaps don't see. So working with them is really, really essential to the success of what you want to achieve.
Interestingly enough, the question is worded here, Alyssa, as how can you work effectively? So it's sort of pointing our students to say, you know, how do you communicate with them? That's the way I'm sort of looking at it. But I'm actually really happy if students give us the why, you know, why communicate with stakeholders, you know, or how does communicating with stakeholders help to achieve the best outcomes. Do you know what I'm sort of saying there?
Absolutely, and Milena just put a nice little point in the chat box as well. She mentioned collaboration. So definitely getting these guys involved is a way that you can work effectively with them. And maybe think about some ways you can collaborate with project stakeholders. You know, what strategies could you use to be able to do that?
So either way, look, we're happy if you give us a couple of strategies on how you're going to engage with your stakeholders, but we're also happy to provide some explanations as to why, you know, you want to engage with them. So, you know, those sort of things, as Milena said, collaboration, more heads, more ideas. Some people, you know, the more people you involve, the more perspectives you're going to get on a given problem or situation. You may be dealing with something that has some sort of legal connotation to it. There's some legislative elements to the problem or the project that you're involved in. Some people might have limited visibility on those issues. Some people might have more. So I guess why you would want to engage and collaborate with your stakeholders is to get more contributions. It also helps mitigating risk. It's a risk mitigation tactic as well, because just think about it from this perspective. If let's imagine I'm running this project, and you know, this project does affect you a little bit, somewhat, and I haven't talked to you about it, I haven't given you any involvement in it. How likely are you to help me through that process? Well, probably not likely at all.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm trying to say is by involving people, it minimises the chance that somebody's likely to sabotage what it is you're trying to do. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just from the basic human elements, you know, when you involve people in a discussion, when you ask somebody for their help, if you ask somebody for their advice, if you just say, hey, we're doing this, we've got this meeting on, we'd love you to be in there, can you just come down for a couple of hours, we just really would love to hear your opinion. It just makes people feel good about themselves. So, and if you make somebody, i.e. a stakeholder, that obviously has some relevance or reference to the project, feel good about themselves, they're more likely to assist you, they're more likely to help you get to the achieved results and so forth. Let's actually, you did mention the other day, Alyssa, a good example about engaging with stakeholders. So in terms of marketing research, that was effectively an engagement with customers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Say
What we were talking,
you're developing, go for
yeah.
it.
So what we were talking about, I remember this conversation now. So what we were talking about with say for example, sorry, there's a plane that's going over my head. So say for example, I used to work in hotels and things like that. So what we would do is, you know, we want the best outcomes and the best results for our customers and our clientele. And so what we used to do was we used to have, you know, regular feedback sessions with them and regular forums with them so that we could gain feedback from them so we could then go on to develop products that I guess suited what they were after. So they were our stakeholders in terms of continuous improvement with the hotel. You know, we went out to our clients, our customers, we asked them. So our collaboration techniques were the use of feedback forums, you know, inviting them in to sample our products. That's how we worked with them to get to know what they wanted, so therefore we could get the best outcomes because they were going to benefit from that as well as us.
Absolutely. So that's a perfect example of, you know, why you would actually engage. So just to recap those that are tuning in, we're happy if you give us a bit of a, you know, if you explain why you would do it. I mean, I'm just as happy with the why as the how. The how is obviously, you know, in terms of setting up meetings, conference calls, emails, phone, SharePoints, you know, communal whatever, that's fine. But I also don't mind. I think the why is more pertinent here, isn't it? I mean, it really demonstrates an understanding of that stakeholder engagement and how it relates to the project. So
definitely.
Should we roll on to question number 3? By the way, if anyone who's in the live feed today, who's not watching on today, who's in the live chat right now, if you have any questions or you would like to add anything to the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Just put something in the chat window, and then Alyssa, who's the organizer, will unmute your microphone, and you'll be free to speak.
Yep.
Cool. I'll read out question 3, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So question 3 is, think about a project that you need to implement. Make a list of project activities, for example, coordinating staff or communicating information.
So
really what, go for it.
So I guess what we're looking at here is quite similar to that very first question. It's just really getting you to think about a project, and it doesn't have to be a huge project that you've been working on. It doesn't have to be like the refurbishment of a hotel or something crazy like that. It can be something very small, but just we want you to identify the project, and then we want you to make a list of activities that you had to do, okay, for that project. So I think the example that Adam's about to write in might be a Christmas tree, organising a Christmas tree. Yeah.
Christmas decorations, yeah?
Yeah, so organising, and it could be something like, your boss has given you the project of organising Christmas decorations for the shop that you work in. So, you know, what we would look at there is, or I guess let's put it to you guys, what are some things that you might have to do to be able, what are some activities you have to do to be able to organise Christmas decorations for the shop? What are some activities you might have to, you need to do?
Good question.
What might be the first activity, or what might be one of the first few activities you might have to do if you're going to organise Christmas decorations?
I don't know. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, hey, how much? Because this is the way my mind thinks. So let's be honest here. I'm thinking about the dollars in the sense, how much cash have we got? Because I've got plenty of ideas, but I want to know how much money I'm allowed to spend. So
definitely.
Let's determine the available budget.
Definitely. And Joseph's put another great one in. Thank you, Joseph. He's talking about the positioning of them. So you've actually really got to think about where the heck are these Christmas decorations going to go? Thank you so much.
Now, the thing is, once you start doing these sorts of activities, you will realise that we could probably go on. It's like it becomes like a divergent sort of activity. We could do this for a gazillion years, and you'll decide that there's actually so many activities that are involved in something that seems so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See.
And Stephen's
that's a really good response there.
Yeah, and Stephen's put another one in as well. Make sure the decorations suit the trends of suit the trends in Christmas decorations. Absolutely.
Nobody wants to put the 1950s display of Christmas lights up, do they? That's not a good thing.
No, that's exactly right. And as Adam said, once you think about some of the activities you have to do when it comes to a project, I guess that's why it's really, really important to make sure you go through a planning process so that you are aware of the amount of activities that you actually have to complete before you can achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there are some generic activities that are involved in project planning. We're absolutely happy if you just list a few generic sort of generic activities, which could be organising team meetings. It could be
like
preparing
coordinating staff or communicating information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're happy if you do that, or we're absolutely happy if you just give us an example like such, and just give us. I mean, how many sort of things are you looking for here, Alyssa? I'm happy if you just give me a list of, I don't know, half a dozen.
Yep,
things.
I was about to say 5. Yeah, no, that sounds good.
You see, I'm a lot tougher than Alyssa when it comes to marking. That's what we've discovered here. No, 5. Look, just a couple of activities. I guess for this question, we just want you to understand that with every sort of task, with every project, you break things down into small little activities, and if you can demonstrate a couple of those, then we're happy. Let's move on to the next one. We're going well. So question 4 in this run says, describe a project that you've been involved with where risk factors such as cost, safety, or perhaps the correct resources were not available or prioritized. What's the impact on the project?
All right.
Alyssa, I'll throw this to you because you were going to talk about something called swings.
Yes, I was. Thank you. Okay, so
I'll get you to talk about that. Yeah.
All right. So I guess what the important thing to remember is when you are undertaking a project, it is really, really important to consider what your risk factors are. And I think Adam had a really good list of some of the risks that could be associated. And it's not just safety risks. There are commercial risks. There are reputational risks. There are human resource risks. There are a lot of different risk factors actually involved in, I can see a screen, there are a lot of actually different factors involved when it does come to risks. So last week I kind of told you all, if you were there last week, I told you about the project that I was working on in WA on the mining sites when we were rolling out training. Now an interesting thing was that we would go out to each site once a month, and it would be every 4 weeks. So what happened was we would roll out training every 4 weeks in the exact same time frame on the exact same sites. But what we didn't take into account was that all the guys that work out on the mine sites are on what's called a swing. So they don't work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. They might work for 2 weeks on, and then they might fly home for 2 weeks, and then they might work 2 weeks on again. Or there are some out there that work 3 weeks on, and then they have a week off. So what we didn't account for how many people would actually miss the training regularly because of the structure of the swings. So that was a big risk for us, and what that led to was it led to a lot of people not actually being able to attend the training, and it led to quite low numbers in progression, which was unfortunate for us. But it was one of those simple things about not considering the availability and the actual operational structure of an organisation like that, where where obviously it was massive impact for us. It was in a session that in a time frame that should have taken say 6 months to complete a course, it could take up to 2 years for some people because trainers were so often chasing and returning to sites. It was quite costly. Yeah. So that was just an example from my end.
I guess for this question, we're just really wanting that students are just, start to consider risk, and risk is probably the most important thing when it comes to the initial planning phase in a project and just in determining what's out there. But typically, and this is sort of, I guess, why Alyssa and I have been sharing some of our anecdotes, because typically people consider risk as safety things. It's an injury. Will somebody get hurt? And that's what people are concerned about when they think about risk is injury. But there are so many other factors, and exactly what you were talking about there, Alyssa, that risk needs to consider. And I've got a little thing here. I think you can see it. I've got a list of some different types of risk. Just starts to get the brain kind of thinking, okay, so what are the different types of risk? So commercial risk. So that could be in terms of, risk to the business, commercially speaking. Your reputation might be affected. So you've got legal risks, you've got financial risks, obviously the health and safety, that's sort of the standard ones. Environmental risks, so damage or, disasters or fires, things like that. Reputation we talked about. Strategic. Yep. That's a really interesting one. I mean, it's one that people don't normally think about. But what's an example of, a strategic risk? I guess if you're doing something which goes against the grain of what your company's values are. I mean, if your company is all about, clean living and clean and green, and then you're doing this project which is just, completely the opposite of that, it becomes, there's some risks involved with that. I'll just do a really, really quick story on something that happened to me. I was involved in a project. Actually, I've discussed this in the first video too. It was in reference to I was the lead test for a project where they were putting a brand new telephone system into a call center with about 120 users. And I had actually planned on leaving the business at some stage, but I was going to wait till the project had finished. I actually got through to the end of the project, ended up training the entire call center on the new system, finalised the project closed, and about 2 weeks after the project closed, I actually handed in my resignation. Now, obviously, they hadn't planned for their one and only person that was what I was called was the subject matter expert. They had not planned for me, myself, to walk up and leave, and I left straight away, basically. So what that goes to show that this particular project, what they didn't do when they were determining the risk was what happens if our resources, our key resources, our people, what happens if our human knowledge walks away, leaves us? Business talk about it as the hit by a bus phenomenon. I don't know if you've ever heard that in business before, but it's a common terminology in business that they talk about the hit by the bus phenomenon. And what they're trying to do, it's risk mitigation, where they're saying, what happens if his manager gets hit by a bus, the one that knows how to deal with all of the problems? What happens if they get hit by a bus? So managing risk is including the hit by the bus phenomenon, where you have to sort of go, well, the knowledge that people have is just as important as anything, and if that knowledge isn't shared, if that second person isn't trained on the same things, then what happens is we rely too heavily on one person. If that person leaves, that person gets injured, that person can't come to work anymore, we've got problems. So for this, just to go back to the question, because I think we've dived it a bit, but to go back to the question, some students might be reading this and say, well, I haven't done any projects before, so how am I going to answer this question? What we're really looking for here is we just want you to discuss different risk factors that are, so you can list a couple of different risks that are general risk projects, and talk about, I guess, the impact that those risks can have on a project. I'm happy with that. Alyssa?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously this paves the way, and as Stephen's mentioned in his chat box, this is really paving the way to show the importance of having contingency plans when it does come to project management and undertaking projects as well. Because you have to have a contingency, you always have to have that backup. So again,
I think risk management is one of the next questions. Maybe not question 5, but it comes up next.
Sure. Definitely. And I'm a big fan of the old contingency planning. Let me tell you, Stephen. I always have Plan B just in case.
I hope you don't have a Plan B with no, we'll leave it alone. Let's go to question number 5. Actually, I have no idea what I was about to say there.
I don't even know what you were about to say.
No, I was saying I hope you don't have a Plan B when it comes to being the awesome trainer that I love working with.
Oh, it's nice. You're only saying it's Friday.
And it's because it's being recorded and, no, I'm kidding. Just for all the students' knowledge, Alyssa and I, we do chat every day, and we really want to make sure that we're offering you guys the best possible support, and so that's why we talk each day about you guys and what we can do to help you, and so on and so forth. Let's jump on to the next question, which is talking about costs. What are the typical types of costs usually included in the budget project plan? Now, there is a slide here. I'm going to look for it.
Right.
Project expenditure.
Yep.
So
there's not much
my
on
suggestion.
it.
Yeah. All my suggestion to students is in answering this question, there's just some general costs listed here.
Yep.
Should we explain some of what some of these costs are? Maybe just general terms. I'm happy for the guys to list some of these things that you see here, as you know, these are the typical types of expenditures that you're going to see in a budget. There's a couple of examples of budgets as well that you can see there too.
Yep.
So click on the go for it.
Maybe it might be maybe we could use the Christmas decorations exercise to kind of maybe contextualize some of the costs. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I guess I guess for you guys, if you were putting up Christmas trees, or if your job was to if your project was to kind of like put up the decorations in your shop, what are some of the costs that might be associated with that? What costs do you think you would have?
So maybe let's discuss some of these sorts of things.
Yep.
So, how would you describe an allocated cost, Alyssa?
Oh my goodness, an allocated cost. Can you scroll down, please?
Like so? How far?
Up a bit, yeah, just up a bit.
Is there a bit on allocated? Is there?
I think
explain each of those.
It should give you a little bit of an example.
I don't know that it does. But basically, it is what it is. I mean, costs that are already allocated.
Yeah, it means like, I guess, an allocated cost would be, see, I would almost say that an allocated cost was, something that you've probably already considered in your expenditure, correct?
It's already something it's already spent. It's like sunk funds. It's already done. It's done and dusted. So the project might include an expense of electricity, but it's a done and dusted thing. It's already allocated. Yeah,
yeah.
Let's have a look at the next one, capital. Now, capital is talking about things like equipment. That's a good example of capital expense, capital expenditure. So it might be particular shop fittings for the Christmas tree example that you need to buy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Next one, labour costs. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they're more asset-based. So they're probably things that you would probably want to spend more that contribute to what's the word I'm looking for? So they're more asset-based. So they're contributing to I'm losing a word here. They contribute the investment of the investment of your business.
Yeah. So these are just generic sort of terms, really. So we're happy if you put a few of those in there, but we're also happy if you just give us a few examples. I mean, would you prefer to have examples, or are you happy with just sort of generic, labour costs and capital costs and overheads and things like that?
Yeah, look, I'm happy with. I'm happy if you say, okay, cost of materials and supplies would. Yeah, look, I'm happy with cost of materials and supplies. If it was a specific project, identifying what those materials and supplies were.
Okay.
Okay, labour cost, if you want to identify, then say, what were the labour costs, or who did the labour costs attribute to. If you had, subcontractor costs as well, I guess, identifying what incorporates into subcontractor costs as well. If you had allocated costs, what were the allocated costs?
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Should we go on to the next question?
Let us.
That's a pretty straightforward question. It's not too tricky. Let's go to question number 6. Review the current project management tools that are used in your organisation. Do you believe that they're used effectively to manage projects? How could your team utilise them to increase performance?
Okay.
Now, again, students are going to struggle that say, well, because some of our students are employed, some of them are not employed at the moment. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to be currently employed to answer these questions and to do this course.
Yep.
So, really, how would you reword this question, Alyssa, for those in different situations that aren't involved in projects or aren't aware of the different tools that are available?
Okay, well, review the current project management tools documents that you, well, maybe what we could talk about, for those, I guess, for those that aren't currently working, maybe think of a couple of project management tools or documents that could be used in a project. Last week we talked a lot about project documentation, so perhaps you could consider a couple of those documents that you might use when it comes to project management. And as Adam and I talked about last week, there are lots of different documents depending on the type of project that you're doing. So I guess, you know, if you want to throw in a couple of examples of, you know, based on your own experiences, whether or not they be previous employment experiences or whether or not they're a little project that you're doing around the home. Okay. Do you believe they are used effectively to manage your project? So do you believe the documents that you've chosen to talk about are effective? And maybe why are they effective as well? So you might be, I'm just trying to think of last week I think we talked about painting the house as a project, didn't we, Adam?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess what project management tools would you use if you were painting your house, or what documents would you use if you were painting your house? Perhaps you might use, you know, those little color coding things, the little ones that tell you the color codes of the colors. Yeah. Maybe you might have a little schedule or something on the fridge that you've put together that tells you what days or what times you're going to be painting. Maybe you've got your friends together and, you know, you've got a little timetable as to when people are actually going to help you paint your house and help you, you know, go through this project. Did they work for you? Are they effective? Okay. Is there a way that you could have used these documents better to make your outcomes better or to increase your performance?
Yeah.
And that's probably, I think, out of context of a work environment, that's probably as basic as you could probably go, I would say.
Well, outside of a work environment, I would reword this question to be something along the lines of, you know, identify the tools that you currently use to assist in your organisation and planning. Do you believe that you're using the tools available as effectively as you can, and how could you and others, you know, utilise the tools that are available to increase your own performance? So it's really just, I guess, taking stock on, you know, how well are you engaging in the available tools that are out there to assist you with planning and organising.
Yeah.
So regardless of whether you're employed, you know, how well are you using various different organisational and planning tools? Can you be using them a little bit better? And how could you or others potentially utilise them if you're not using them, for example? Well, how could you potentially use them to increase performance? It actually rolls on to the next question, well, so I think I might just go to the next question, which is going to say list 3 examples of product management tools and how they're used. Now, there is a slide on project management tools. I'm not going to pull it up.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of things, like it talks about cost schedule control systems, critical path methods, and Gantt charts and PERT charts. And
Yeah.
Well, after you listing 3, it's in the content. I can't be 100% sure exactly where in the content it is. One of these ones talks about project management tools.
Yeah.
Anyway, you'll see it in there. You can click on it and it'll give you a whole list of
there it is, project management tools under develop a project plan.
Okay. So if you click to that page, you'll see there's a list of these the different tools here.
Yeah. And there's actually, and
there's an explanation of them underneath as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just you know, I guess if you are involved in a project, use the easiest tool that you understand and the easiest tool that works for you, because depending on the type of project will be dependent on the project management tool that you will use. Okay. A lot of people that
I was going to say, I wouldn't mind giving a visual of the Gantt chart.
Yeah, of course.
Gantt chart,
that's what I was going to say, yeah.
In my experience, the Gantt chart is one of the most common of these tools that I see that gets used in projects.
Yeah.
If people haven't, you know, have a look at the screen now. Can you guys see what I'm showing you now?
Yeah.
So how would you describe what we're looking at here, Alyssa? Gantt chart?
I would always describe, I actually like Gantt charts because they're actually quite visual, and I'm a very visual person. I can look at that, I can go, right, I think I've got to, my requirements analysis is due, I think that's probably looks like about April to May. So from a Gantt chart basically will break down each milestone, or if you want to go even a little bit more, you can definitely go into a little bit more depth with the Gantt chart.
Yep. The task's on the left-hand side here, and then the timeline is on this right-hand side here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought I'd explain that. So you've got your tasks, and then you've got your timeline running that way. Sorry.
And basically, you've got this particular Gantt chart showing you what's scheduled and what's the actual. So you can visually see, so anybody could at any stage come into a project, and if you've got a Gantt chart in your office or in your room or wherever, people will know at what stage of the project you're actually at if something happens. And it just means that everybody knows exactly what stages where everybody is, and I think it's a really nice visual display of the progress and the breakdown of a project myself.
The funny thing is that the requirements analysis stage was actually the blue line is the actually, it went a lot further than what it was initially anticipated. So what happens is all of these blue lines as a result start after the red line. What that means is everything was delayed. Everything was delayed on this particular project. And then going forward, I mean, if you're doing another project in a similar thing, you're going to look at this requirements analysis stage and go, you know what, last time we didn't leave enough time for it. You might sort of schedule that, because what happens is if things are way out of proportion with timelines, you know, you might have certain resources turning up. You're paying every day to have a certain resource available for you that day. You might have to be paying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You might be paying for 3 months to have that there, sitting there waiting to be used, installing, spending money. So that's, I guess, why these things sort of help out.
Yeah.
Listen, we've got to cruise along here because we're in nice, chatty, flowy groove. We should jump on to the next series of questions, which I believe is
rollout and resourcing.
Thank you very kindly.
Cool.
Does anybody have any questions before we continue with these ones? How is everybody going with what we've gone through so far? Okay. Alyssa, I'm going to read out the first question. Do you want to jump in and...
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yep, so the first question is outline two communication strategies that you can implement to ensure that your team members are clear about their responsibilities.
Oh, this is such a...
Oh, I love this question.
I know you love the question. I'm surprised you gave me the question. Outline two communication strategies you can implement to ensure your team members are clear. Okay, so I guess, thank you very much, Stephen. Yes, you can definitely use the 360-degree feedback survey, and that is actually using one of the tools that we discuss in planning. I guess the most important thing is definitely to remember is that there are people and team members involved in a project, and they look to you, if you're the project manager, as to what the expectations and what their responsibilities are. Now, your team members are very unique and they're very, very different, and they need and they want and they hear and they see very different things. So how you communicate to them is incredibly essential. Am I not right, Adam?
I think you're 100% right. So I've had more phone calls in the last 5 minutes since we've been on this webinar than I think I have in the whole last 3 months. So have you got another? Can you continue talking on this one? Why I just pick up the phone really, really quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
You know what? Okay.
Cool.
What I would say in reference to this is, you know, just again, it's the human element. We're dealing with people. Projects are just a combination of people and things. And when you're dealing with people, there's that human element that's always involved. And what I would say is when you're communicating with people, you've got to communicate the understanding of that person. And is this sort of what you were just saying? I've just got a bit sidetracked before when you were talking.
Yeah,
is that
definitely.
What you're kind of going through?
Definitely. And I think I've mentioned as well that I'm a very visual person, so I need to see things. So if you're going to communicate to me, you can talk to me, but if you show me things, like I like to see the Gantt charts and I like to see visual, like if there is a refurbishment, I like to see designs and drawings of what things ultimately look like. So the best way to communicate with me is almost on a visual level sometimes, because I like the visual connectivity to a project.
Okay, but guess what? If I'm the project manager and you're on my project team, I don't know that you're a visual learner.
That's right.
So what's the strategy that I can engage in to make sure that you know what you're doing on this project then?
That's exactly right.
And this is really what the question is asking. So in my opinion, what we need to do in these scenarios is really to ask questions of those, just to make sure that they're clear about what they're doing. So what you do is you explain something to somebody, and then you effectively ask them to explain it back to you. And that is really how you check that somebody has a complete understanding on something. Because what actually happens, I mean, imagine the dynamic, right? It's day one, new project. There's a whole team of 10 people gathered around to start this new project. I'm up there. I'm the lead of this project, and I'm saying, cool, welcome everybody. Okay, here are the things that we need to do. We need A, B, C, D, E, everybody, is everybody clear? All right, off you go. Who's going to put their hand up out of a group of 10 people and say, I'm sorry, I didn't really understand what you were just saying there. It's not, you know, again, that's where the human sort of element comes in. People, you don't want to sort of put your hand up and say, look, I don't understand, or I'm not, you don't want to look like you're incapable. You don't want to look like you're bringing the team down. You don't want to sort of step in. Maybe there's something you just didn't understand. Maybe you'll work it out later. This is a problem for project managers because it's really up to them to make sure that those that are getting involved in the project understand. So a strategy that you can implement to ensure that members are clear about their responsibilities is to check their understanding, ask them questions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I would have thought.
Yeah.
Get them to explain exactly what they're doing and so on and so forth. What's another strategy? Because the guys have to come up with two.
Yep. Well, I think Stephen brought up quite a nice one about the 360 feedback, and I think if we kind of move on and we call it a communication strategy in terms of, you know, sitting down in a feedback forum or a feedback session prior to a project, like maybe have a developmental meeting or a project scope meeting or something to that nature where you allow that 360 feedback and for people to voice their expressions and their bits and bobs about who they are and, you know, what position they play on the team or what position they play on the project is essentially kind of almost like 360 but a little bit less formalised, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, 360 feedback, it can work, but I mean, look, typically in a project, the most common formality of communicating, you know, what people are doing is through meetings. You often have daily meetings. So this is obviously one of the answers that you can provide us. You know, daily meetings or regular catch-up meetings. Also, the thing that you see get sent around a lot is like a regular email update with a list of project tasks, the people that are responsible for those tasks, and if they've been completed or not. And then everybody can be very, very clear about what their responsibility is, what their role is, and in fact, what everybody else's roles and responsibilities are. So in my experience in working with project teams, you often get those updates that get sent through each week. Here's the list of tasks, guys, and here's who's responsible for each task. So a communication strategist could be to list each task and disseminate that through an email chain or set up meetings or, you know, or 360 feedback or, you know, getting somebody just to, or checking somebody's understanding through questioning and getting them to explain what they're doing.
Cool.
Let's move to the next one. What project record keeping systems are you required to maintain projects within your organisation? There is a slide here, guys. I'm going to go straight to it. Yep, the slide is auditing and record keeping systems. You'll see there's a whole bit there, establishing record keeping systems. So it's just, again, really general sort of stuff, things on project outcomes, things on quality time spent on the project or progress in completing a project, which is what we were sort of showing you there before with like the Gantt charts. So it's really anything, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Why? Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're dealing with projects that have quite a considerable amount of costs associated with them, then you're definitely going to need a good, strong record-keeping system for things like that. I think any that you might hold, if there's any legislative issues, if you have got people that are involved with council that you need to minute note meetings around, those record-keeping systems are incredibly essential, and quite often for compliance reasons, you need to make sure you maintain those documents as well. General things like reports, meeting minutes, you could almost say, feedback forms, I guess, as well.
Absolutely.
So all of those types of things would definitely be considered, parts of systems.
Look, the more you keep, the better, because look, the next time you engage in a project, you've got, that previous information to roll off on the back of. You've got that information. If something happens, and this is what always happens in a project, something will happen, and you need to go back to your notes and go, what do we write? Where were we last time? Or what was the result of that? So you just need knowledge is power. Information is important, and this is just playing things safe. And there's also potential legal connotations as well if you don't keep set records on whatever it might be.
That's correct.
Now that might be records on safety training. Somebody gets injured and there was no records kept of their training or anything like that. Now, this is all these sort of things that you might encounter. So have a look at the page that says auditing and record keeping systems. You'll see some stuff there. That's fine. Just give us a little bit of that, and you will be happy.
Lovely. Shall we move on to question 3?
I think so.
Okay.
All projects require resourcing. What are some of the considerations that need to take place within your role as a project manager when you determine the correct levels? So how would you explain this question?
Okay, well, I guess when we think of, what we probably should consider first is what is resourcing. I think there is actually a bit of a slide on resourcing there. And what would we consider actual resources themselves?
Yeah, there's a great slide for this. I've just pulled it up now. Can you see that? It's called Identify Project Resources is the slide in the actual learning material.
Yeah. So I think they've got here, what have they got? Obtaining goods and services required to deliver the project. Appointing or recruiting staff can be one. Appointing consultants could also be resources.
So resources are just things. Now the things could be people or materials, and that's basically as simple as it is. So
it could be energy. It could be pretty much. There's a lot of things that you could consider as a resource. And obviously a lot of resources are quite costly, so that's why it's really important that they get taken into consideration as well.
So these are the determinations on the right-hand side. There are a couple of ideas for determining resources. Now, remember how we were talking about the Christmas tree or Christmas decorations example, and we were coming up with activities? The first activity I came up with is determine how much cash we've got. And this is the same sort of thing here in this example. So the question is saying, what are the considerations? What do you have to think about when you're trying to work out how much stuff we need? Yep. So when we're working out how many Christmas decorations we need, one of the factors that we're going to consider, one of the determining factors, is going to be cost. Yeah. Specifications, that's a really good one too, because the Christmas tree, we could buy a Christmas tree that's 150 meters in the air, but hang on, what are the specifications that we're working with? Well, the floor, I think one of the guys in the room here mentioned positioning before or something like that. So, what are the dimensions that we're dealing with? These are the considerations that we have to think about when we're working out how many things and how much stuff we're going to buy.
Yeah.
Also, considerations might be the supplier, their terms as well. So, what are their terms of sale? How quickly do they deliver something? These are all the things we need to think about.
Seasonality of goods as well.
That's good. Seasonality. Ooh, yeah. That's true though. It's 100% true. And also, if we're buying Christmas trees that might need to be watered, or I don't know, if the Christmas trees could be watered, that could be good. We might, consider not buying the resources 6 months before we need them, because they may not make it 6 months. Or they may not be able to be alive for 6 months by the time we're there. So we want you to think outside the square a little bit. These are very general, specifications and costs and time and supplier details and whatever. They are just general sort of determinations. We're happy if you go with those.
Absolutely.
Shall we move along? Okay.
Yes.
So think of a project that you've implemented or involved in. What were the key safety risks that need to be considered? So what are we going to do here for students that haven't had project experience?
Well, I reckon maybe we could change the project to say what are some key safety risks that need to be considered when working on a project.
I'd like the students to actually give us an example here and then talk and then show us the key safety risks, because otherwise we might get answers like, you know, injury or broken arm or something. But yeah, but
so what if, okay, yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, maybe the guys can. Okay, so fire risks. That is a general risk, but what's it in reference to? So it doesn't sort of sit on anything. I would like that the students come up with a project that could be around the house. So we talked about painting the house as a project. You know, we're talking today about organising Christmas decorations. So where I'd actually really like, you know, Christmas decorations. Here are some risks, and then you're 100% right. Fire is a risk. Electrical safety, all those sorts of things. Come up with a list of a couple of safety risks that are associated with a given project, just so that we can sort of see that you've considered it from that particular angle. Look, if your answers are particularly strong as far as safety risks and they're general and you don't have an explanation, I think that'd be okay. But you know, more information is always better. I always say to students, if you're not sure, add a little bit more and you probably get it. So yeah.
Yes, there's some good little comments coming in the actual portal. I think Milena mentioned something about a jewellery party at home, and Joseph mentioned that there could be choking hazards for children if children are in attendance.
Yeah, excellent. So now you guys are thinking.
Talk about quick kill firing. So yeah, definitely. I think.
Okay, well, having a jewellery party at home. What are some of the safety risks that might be involved in having a jewellery party at home?
Definitely a choking hazard if there's children.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Definitely.
Do children eat jewellery, really?
Children eat anything, don't they?
Anything. Okay, so now you guys are thinking, that's good, that's really what we want. And I think we have one more question on this one. Yeah, we do, one more question.
I think there's 5 questions. Yeah, there's one more, there's 5 questions.
So the last question here is, there's a video, short little video, I think it goes for about a minute, 30 seconds. Check out the video, then we'll ask you, what did you learn in relation to transitioning a project team? And what are the most important areas to focus on to help your team manage the changes during each stage of the project? So, Alyssa, you're going to talk a little bit about change management. I might just get you to chat about this.
Sure. I guess once you've watched the short YouTube clip, as Adam's mentioned, I guess give us a couple of points on what you learnt about, you know, in relation to transitioning the project team. And the other part of the question is, what are 2 of the most important areas to focus on to help you manage the changes during each stage of the project? So as your project kind of goes through stages, it will change. Perhaps roles will change, maybe responsibilities will change. Quite often, you know, time changes a little bit, costs will change. So there will be lots of things that perhaps might change essentially. So I guess your job as a project manager is to obviously give us a couple of important things to really focus on when you are managing change. Okay, so when you do manage change, what do you really need to focus on to help your team members through that process? And I think sometimes one of the biggest things when you are going through a change process is communication. Okay, I think communication is one of the key areas. If something is changing, people need to know. If they're working on a project, they've got responsibilities. You need to communicate to these people, because if you don't communicate with them, they're not going to know, and if they don't know, they're going to feel like they're left in the dark and they're going to start to sabotage the project. So I think communication is definitely a key area when you are managing change.
Yeah. Yep, I'm happy with that. Does anybody have any thoughts on this question? Anyone want to add anything? Or did you have anything else that you wanted to say in reference to this question? It's such a short little video that, you know, you'll watch it and there's a bit of discussion on there, so we're not, you know, we'll let you watch it just to give you, you know, I guess just put your answers in there. But does anybody want to ask any questions, or Alice, have you got anything else that you'd like to contribute to today's webinar?
No, I mean, I think, as we mentioned before, these are learning activities, guys. So, Adam and I have gone through them with you, and hopefully you feel confident enough to be able to, start answering them. And that's actually two of the activities that you would have to answer. I guess there's a lot to do in the assessments when it comes to undertake project work. So just make sure you're really familiar with the resource material, answer your learning activities. Adam and I will give you some feedback on your learning activities, so hopefully it'll unlock the projects. But again, if you're not sure of something, Adam and I are here definitely to support you and to kind of answer a question if you've got one. We said, as Adam mentioned, we do a 24-hour turnaround on the weekdays. Get it to us, get questions to us, email us, and we're more than happy to help you if you get stuck on something.
Absolutely. And look, if you're waiting for us to mark something, jump on to the next thing.
Yeah,
so at the moment, there should be a couple of subjects open for students. So if you're working on project planning and you're waiting for us to mark it, it'll be within 24 hours. Go back to the first subject or the second subject, continue working through, and then effectively you won't be waiting. You shouldn't have to wait any period of time to do some work, which would be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions? Yeah, does anybody have any questions in general about the subject, about the course, about the system, or anything that they would like to ask of Alyssa and myself? Okay, I think that's going to be wrapping up our second session then on project planning.
Yes.
Thanks very much for your attendance, guys. Just to let everybody know, webinars next week will be held, will be running at 6 o'clock. Now, this is a group, this is a combination, so Diploma of Business students.
Yep.
Next week, you will be having your third planning webinar on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Your third project planning, which will be talking about these two subjects here, project risk and lessons and success, will be held on Thursday at 6 p.m.
Yep.
For management students, your planning subject is going to be on Wednesday at 6 p.m. It's a combined session on the Thursday, next Thursday. Was that correct?
Correct. Yeah, because we've got
that wrong.
Yeah, no. Tuesday's business. You guys for management are Wednesday for planning at 6 and Thursday for project planning at 6 because we're going to do the joint because of the public holiday.
Yeah. Because of the public holiday, yeah. Okay, yeah, no, you're right. Because we decided that 6 o'clock on Friday is probably not really cool.
That's right.
Well.
And we also
decided
that 6 o'clock on Monday on Australia Day is probably not a cool time to have a webinar.
Nobody wants to come after the pub.
That's exactly.
Webinar today. Or maybe we could run a webinar after going to the pub one day.
No, don't encourage yourself, Adam.
Just kidding. All right, guys, thanks very much for your attendance. Wishing you all a very, very happy and safe long weekend, wherever you might be. Good luck with your studies. Good luck with these questions. Wish you all the best of luck. And, yeah, please get in touch with us if we can be of any assistance. Keep an eyeball out for upcoming webinars. As we mentioned, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for students next week at 6 p.m. Have a look at the links coming through soon, or actually they're already sent out today.
Yep.
Have a look for those. And we look forward to seeing you next week, 6 o'clock, for the next installment of the webinars.
Yep. Cool. Sounds good. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we will talk next week. See you later.
Bye for now.